doesn't seem like it's been for 100 years.
This way has become an epidemic unprecedented in the history of American medicine.
There's a nightmare that probably every single one of us has thought about. That you're terminally ill, you're broke, and you have nowhere to turn. Well, as it turns out, in America, there are some people who have seen the business possibility in that nightmare.
You are 43. Here you are with the virus, no job, no income. You have sold your insurance policy, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Wow, all right.
AIDS is the disease that triggered this new idea.
You're set up to broker the sale of life insurance policy of dying AIDS patients.
The arrangement is called a Viatical settlement, a Latin expression meaning money for a long journey.
The only hitch is the buyer needs proof that you will be cashing in pretty soon.
This does make people wince. There is a kind of exploitation about this, a kind of ghoulish,
Morbid.
Exploitive. Death futures.
waiting for the body to show up at the morgue.
It's also a chance for someone to make a profit, and more Viatical firms are popping up every month to do just that.
I was called every name in the book, but we were fighting for our lives. I knew what I was doing was such an important need to help people live the remaining time they had with some dignity.
You know you're going to die. This idea arose. Instead of having an insurance policy go to your estate, would you like to have some of that now? That's where the industry arose.
Oh, okay. When the commercials would come on, you would go there and think about what it could be like to have that money like that. But a lot of people didn't have that opportunity.
Thank you guys for being here. Good morning. You've all been touched by this epidemic in different ways and by this industry in different ways.
There was a lot of people capitalizing off our illness.
We started looking to each other and created kind of a do-it-yourself movement.
You start seeing your community and your friends and your lover go through these tragic, horrible events, all that could have been somewhat mitigated with money. I grew up very poor and very confused. I always thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't have feelings for women. I went to see a shrink. Like, well, you should be in an environment that's not conducive to homosexuality. I think you should join the military. So I went into the recruiting office the next day, signed up for the Air Force, was stuck in a 20 by 20 room with 30 boys and said, take a shower. And I was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure this was really the best environment for me to have non-conducive homosexual thoughts. I'd started at my duty assignment in the environmental medicine division, and they were looking for volunteers to study this new disease called GRID, which is gay-related immune deficiencies.
There are few scarier things than the discovery of a new killer disease, one medical science admits is mostly a mystery.
The first time I heard about it, we were all living in this room of house, about 13 girls watching the TV, and it came up saying it was a disease that was killing gay men in California.
The disease, which is almost always fatal, leads to a complete breakdown of the body's own natural defenses.
I just stopped the girls from what they're doing. I said, did y'all hear what they just said? Then it hit us. It was 3 or 4 people dying every week, sometimes every day.
When people were getting diagnosed, their time frame for the expected survival was so short. And there were multiple times when I went to 2 memorial services in a day. I didn't go, but there were times when I could have gone to 3.
Everyone knew when you got it because it showed.
I started working, developing ways to identify service people who were HIV positive. And really got an understanding of, transmission. And at the same time, I had this nagging feeling, I really think I'm gay.
Were you having gay experiences when you were in the military?
Yes.
And what was that like?
It was really hot. It was. And it just happened real quick and it ended real quick. And I knew I wanted more. And I always had these fantasies about how wonderful would it be to have a husband. I said, I got to do something. I left my duty station and decided that I'm going to be out and I'm going to go meet somebody in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And I remember driving down nervous and I walked into, a gay bar. I was wearing this really ridiculous outfit with my collar turned up. And as soon as I walked up to the bar, someone beside me said, hi. And I said, hello. And he goes, can I buy you a drink? He was masculine. He had big forearms. He had dark hair. He had big ears. I remember I shook his hand and it was like this baseball glove grabbing my hand. And I was just like, oh my God, this is a man, He was everything that I had fantasized about. His name was Greg. He was from Cleveland, and it ended up being my first real love.
Hi. I'm the best.
I went to Cleveland to visit him. He would come to visit me. During our 3 months of driving back and forth, I got a random phone call. They said, hey, I know you've been dating Greg, but there's something you need to know. He has AIDS. And I was just devastated. I felt like my heart was ripped out. And then I started thinking, I remember how cautious he was. He was very, very gentle and cautious about not swapping bodily fluids. And I called Greg, I was like, why didn't you tell me? He said, Scott, I was afraid it would scare you away before you ever had a chance to get to know me. And I really pondered, do I want to be in my first loving relationship with someone who had AIDS? I remember thinking, what if he told you he had a brain tumor? Would you stop loving him? I got in my car and drove to Cleveland and started a fairy tale romance. There were times when he just wasn't physically capable of working. We were broke. And we were going through bills, and he was like, well, I can't pay this, can't pay that. And one of them was from John Hancock. He goes, my life insurance policy is, can't pay that. I knew that he had a limited life expectancy. And I was like, well, Greg, I think we should pay this. I'm gonna write a letter to the Cleveland Plain dealer. And I was like, we need money, and we have this life insurance policy. And if I pay the premium, there's $100,000 when Greg dies, so we can pay you back. It ran on Sunday, and on Monday, this investor was trying to contact us. We arranged this very loose sort of transaction, one of the first Viatical settlements, and we got some money immediately. We moved out of that apartment into a house and got a dog. He wanted a golden retriever. It was absolutely transformative to us and to Greg. And I could see the stress leaving him. Greg went to a Cleveland HIV support group and said, guess what my boyfriend Scott just did? People were like, oh my God, I have a life insurance policy. I have one through my work. Can you help me? And I was like, I'm gonna figure it out.
For many people with AIDS, one of the most difficult issues is how to pay for the exorbitant medical cost of the disease.
Most people, when they have AIDS, become impoverished at some point.
I had to literally spend every cent that I had on medication, on health care.
They were so destitute and scared. They couldn't even focus on enjoying the remainder of the time they had.
His health was so bad he couldn't keep his job.
And I was in the hospital, and I still had to pay my rent, and I still had to pay my phone bill and my gas bill and electric.
A lot of people died alone, in abandoned buildings, in boarding houses. Scary.
We were just sort of understanding the fact of how little the government cared about us.
1 in every 3 people that get this have died, and I wonder if the president is aware of it.
I don't have it, are you? Do you?
We preached to bald-headed white men at the CDC, and we would preach to them the same message every year.
Virtually all of the institutions of power we knew were not serving us.
With Viaticals, they realized what a great concept. I can help myself.
I myself have lost several ex-lovers who died completely broke, and I think would have lived longer if they had had this money.
More and more people were coming to me from Cleveland wanting help, and I knew, well, I've got to get more money. I started working for Greg's sister. She saw that this was my passion, and she was like, we need to turn this into a business. I was like, wow, this just really smart woman and this gay guy, we're gonna conquer the world.
Scott Page, you own Page and Associates. May I ask you to stand, please? There you are.
I know with AIDS, stress is a major player in the quantity of someone's life.
Money in the checking account, it helps.
Exactly, it relieves the amount of stress that is just, it's enormous.
Michael Brandon, you have sold your insurance policy to investors who give you immediate cash, and then the investors receive the payout on the occasion of your death.
Yes.
I went to banks and credit unions and anyone I thought that would lend money on this type of transaction. They were like, why are you taking their life insurance? That life insurance is for their family. And I'm like, these people's family have walked away from them.
I had a lot of hard times accepting all the things that were happening to me at one time.
He didn't have a coat, he doesn't have the clothes he has on today, he wasn't able to pay his rent, and then when we were able to give him these funds, it was like a new person had developed with Michael.
He's taking care of himself, he doesn't have to beg, and he's not reliant on other people.
People started understanding that, hey, this is something that can really make a difference in people's lives.
So if you couldn't get any big institutional investors, where did you get the money?
Individuals. It was like this very unorganized group of pioneer humanitarian investments.
How many life insurance policies did you buy from people who had AIDS?
It was probably 30 or so, maybe 35.
You ready?
Yeah.
How's everybody doing? We're doing great,
I'm trying a lot of different things. Yeah. Theater, now theater you like.
Yeah, theater I liked.
We had no idea. Yeah, no idea.
Can I see your shoes? Who's on your head?
I only found out a couple years ago that one of the early investors in this industry was my dad, that he had bought the life insurance policies of several people who were dying of AIDS, that he had made a profit when they died, And that in turn, my childhood was bankrolled by that money.
That's right.
I think about like all the extracurricular activities I did, the vacations we went on, and that was thanks to him and thanks to those profits. And as I've grown up, I now am a gay man living a pretty unencumbered gay life. I wanted to delve into each of your stories to learn about this industry, but ultimately to help me make sense of my own story. So how exactly did you find out about people selling life insurance?
I think it was one of these brokers.
I'm getting tired.
Working with someone who was terminally ill, had AIDS. They were desperate to do something with their life insurance policy because they needed money. And they approached us and said, hey, you know, would you consider a transaction?
And when was this?
We must protect those who do not have the disease. And thus
It was the very early 90s. I was fortunate that I had made a little bit of money being in business with my father. I had just been married. I didn't have friends who were suffering from AIDS, dying from it. And when I got into the Viatical business, that's the first time that I really connected with lots of people who were in dire circumstances and needed help.
Good afternoon, Life Partners.
If they got the policy through work, they were usually no longer employed there, so the policy was now theirs to pay the premiums on. What they needed was money today.
How much were you usually giving?
I think it probably went as high as 80%. On the low end, you know, 30, depending on, frankly, how sick they were.
In a ghoulish catalog of the dying, potential investors are given a listing of terminally ill patients, the value of their policy, how much it would cost to acquire it, a T-cell count which indicates the stage of illness, and the life expectancy of the patient.
In effect, the investor is betting on someone's death, and that is somewhat ghoulish. But for many people, that's the only way that they've got.
The obligation that we had to assume was paying the annual premiums. And then when they die, the death benefit would go to us. We were motivated by a financial investment, but also, let's say, gratified by the fact that we were helping people.
It was Labor Day of 1985. I thought I had the worst case of poison ivy. Dr. Nathaniel Peer said, you have shingles, and I think you should be tested for HIV. I was diagnosed with AIDS-related complex, which meant I had HIV, but I didn't meet the definition for AIDS yet. And Nathaniel, he held his hands across his desk and held both my hands. And he said, look, Sean, these days you can have a good 2 years left. That was in 1985. In virtually all the media, HIV was framed in the context of being inevitably fatal. Our humanity got lost. We became this very single dimension, dying person, dying person. People were also living their lives. They were falling in love, and they were breaking up, and they were pursuing their art or their, education or their businesses. So I wanted something that would reflect those lives.
Sean Strub is entering one of the most exciting stages of his life. He is the founder and executive editor of a new magazine. He started it by selling his life insurance.
I put together almost $400,000 from my Viatical, and that's what started the magazine.
His magazine is called Pause. It's the only nationwide publication informing people on the issues of HIV and AIDS.
The production values of the magazine were pretty remarkable. And we were criticized for that. I said, oh, it's just glossy, like somehow, people with AIDS didn't deserve good photography and good production values and excellent writing. When I started the magazine, I wasn't sure I'd be around, for the first year anniversary. We've only lasted a year. fine, it'd be a gorgeous year and we'd do it right without compromise. We've never done this, gone back and looked at these. It's kind of odd, isn't it?
It's a little odd, yeah. Wow, there are a lot of Viatical ads.
This one is like, you know, Crazy Eddie. Turn your life insurance into cash now, cash now, cash now. Your needs must be met now. Your dreams must be fulfilled now. I never questioned whether it was a net good, the Viaticals. It pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into the economy of people living with AIDS.
Some would use a large portion of it to take care of themselves. Pay for rent, medications, and some of them would blow it and travel, throw a party or buy a car. With the money I have, my partner Rob and I are going to buy a house, which has always been a lifelong dream. I was able to buy this beautiful Pontiac Grand Am. It was something that Gary wanted so bad before he died.
Tom and Jerry, the names they asked to go by, used the money to buy and furnish a dream house in the Poconos, their weekend retreat from New York City.
I'm out and about, capital hopping in Europe. I'm doing pretty good, taking my naps, eating my way through countries. Aloha. Thought I would drop you a line and thank you for everything.
The Viatical industry has grown from just 3 companies back in 1989 to more than 50 today.
To a $500 million a year business.
So everybody was happy?
Issue a settlement. Oh, yes, I wish. The landscape here in Atlanta, if you were black and trans, you went to jail. You can't get a job. You can't even get a job at McDonald's. I became a street kid, having sex for money with men. And that kind of fueled the whole thing. You know, if I'm going to eat, if I want a place to sleep, you're gonna have to. And they might request that you don't use a condom. I really kind of knew I was positive before I got the diagnosis. I had 3 T cells. I call them the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I learned about the settlement industry on a commercial.
Life is full of choices. But what choices do you have when you're terminally ill? Selling your life insurance policy for cash can give you back some of those choices.
I dreamed about it. I dreamed about if I had a settlement, I could go to the beach. And I could stay there until this thing is through. I'm going on to glory. And I wouldn't have to worry about anything. That was not a reality at all. We never got a job, so we could never get insurance. And you're thinking, well, they have a potter's field where they bury poor people. And they put you in a wooden box, and they throw dirt over you and say a little prayer.
When I was really sick, just covered with the cast lesions, and I got it internally in my lungs, I thought, okay, this is it. But what happened is combination therapy came out.
The presentation, say, particularly in combination therapy, is unquestionably a step forward in therapeutics.
there's a major new reason for hope in the fight against AIDS tonight. A new class of drugs are working.
I could feel like the virus is slowly draining out of my body, like draining out of a bathtub. I knew the lesions were lessening. I knew I was getting better.
By 1999, people that had sold their policies made it across the finish line to get access to protease inhibitors.
Many people, tens of thousands of people, have been positive 15 years or longer.
Okay.
Including myself.
Including yourself, 15 years or longer?
Correct.
It was going great until people didn't die on time.
The worst news for the Viatical industry would be a cure
Sure,
for AIDS.
exactly, a cure. I think that would be the worst news.
All of a sudden, their surefire investment wasn't paying off.
The Dual family bought 12 life insurance policies, all of AIDS patients with life expectancies, they were told, under 2 years. But nearly 3 years since they bought in, none of the 12 policies paid off.
I realized there was the advent of protease inhibitors. I don't think we got valid, good, researched information to begin with.
Investors would come out of the woodwork. I want to see that gay guy's medical records. And I was like, I'm not going to give you the name of someone who's battling for their life, and they're worth more to you dead than alive.
I got a sense that they were waiting for my death to get their money, and that was eerie.
Kendall says it was nearly 2 years to the day that he started getting mysterious overnight mail and birthday cards from people he believes were checking to see if he was still alive. Worse, he says, was this letter telling of one investor who was threatening to sue the Viatical broker because Kendall had not died as expected.
I'm sure it was one of the worst investments they've ever made. The papers from the sale of 2 of my policies. It might be weird if the person who actually invested in my death was sitting here, you know.
What would be really weird, I think, if you saw the paperwork that the investor received.
He's at death's door.
Yeah.
He's not going to make it
Exactly.
to January business on the beach or whatever.
It became a much trickier business. So yes, that's when we exited.
You didn't buy any new policies at that point, but did
Yeah.
you have anybody who ended up living or who's still living?
Everyone passed away. I mean, to think that you were just talking with someone about how they're going to use the money and what their life is, and then before you turn around, almost before the ink is dry on the deal, you know, you've already passed away. I've always believed that it's an individual's responsibility to sort of provide for themselves. But I couldn't help but think, you know, geez, they shouldn't have to turn to selling their life insurance policy to live.
The question I'm left with now is like not so much about was what my dad did during the AIDS epidemic good or bad. Now I'm just really starting to think about, was this a solution or was this a Band-Aid?
It was a solution for those who had life insurance, but most of people don't have life insurance. So what did they do?
Oh, you have to stop.
Oh, that sexiness.
Good morning.
Good morning, love.
After my diagnosis, I knew I was going to die. I just knew my time was coming. I became depressed. I was doing drugs. And I did that for 7 years. And one day I woke up and I said, girl, when they gonna have your services? You ain't dead yet? And it's just like something just jumped in me, and I just said, I need to brush this dirt off of me and throw these flowers to the side and get up from here out this grave and find out why am I still here? Why am I still here? I serve. Black trans community, we have over 50% rate of infection of HIV, and we were not being recognized. I founded Legender in the year 2000. Legender required me to be in office 17 hours a day, literally. And I would have to crawl up the steps when I got home. I felt like everybody deserved the same health care treatment, support. I testified to the Georgia Assembly. I testified in D.C., in the White House. We did some work with the ELC, and that opened up a whole big door. What I'm trying to do is give dignity, not with life insurance, but just in general, and without a derogatory intention, like getting rich off a person's death. That's what we should be looking at, people that want to capitalize on other people's sickness, illness, tragedies.
There were cowboys, and there were abuses. You know, there were people who were paid far too little for their policies.
I knew there was something wrong. I was just in fear. And you don't know how long you're going to live.
If you didn't put that company into competitive bidding, they would give you their lowest offer.
Is that how the game is played?
That's how the game is played.
Because they want to make as much money as they can.
They're businessmen.
I think what I came away understanding is my dad did something good within that system, but nobody's health or survival should be pegged to his wallet.
When you get down to the root of it, it's a very ugly thing.
That in this country, we accept the fact that when a person becomes chronically or terminally ill, they will be pauperized is to me a scandal.
This is the quilt panel for Greg. It was the morphine that finally put him to sleep, and he had a morphine pump. And he kept telling me, help me. And he kept like trying to push the button because he knew he was dying and just didn't want to suffer any longer. And I remember like pushing that button and pushing that button and pushing that button and telling him it was going to be okay. And just kept pushing it, and he finally took his last breath. This is the last letter Greg wrote me.
We've talked about this many times of how proud I am of him to be able to, you know, that he made such a difference.
Enclosed, please find the certified copy of the death certificate for Larry. I don't know what he would have done without you, and I'm not quite sure how we would have made it either. Thank you for making that final push to make sure I got my funds a few days before Christmas. It was the best Christmas I ever had, even though it might be my last.
Anthony.
Benjamin.
We'll be in touch until the end. Sincerely, with love. Robert.
I must say in ending that I've just lost a woman whom I've loved for 8 years, and you made our last summer and fall something to always remember. If you were not there, it wouldn't have been possible. Thank you. God bless. Amen.
When I'm looking at these, I feel like these are my letters too. My hurt and my pain is yours. The one thing that connects us is pain, because we all know what that feels like.
Viewing my life through the lens of the gratitude that I have for survival. The joy I get with my partner and my family of giving something back to a community that I loved makes me experience life differently.
Last year, I finally got some life insurance for me and my husband. Today, I can say I got me an insurance policy, baby. I do have a God who is very, very generous. He woke me up again. The nerve. Now, my dreams are to have a spiritual retreat centered by the water.
There's a lot of Greg that I see in my husband, Dirk. My inner self feels Greg with me always. When you're holding someone that you love and they take their last breath, it's an experience that I'm somewhat grateful for, that I had the opportunity to help him through that journey, to let go. I remember saying, I love you. I love you.